And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
Today's guest is Mary Bergstrom. Mary had a near-death experience in 2013 due to a heart attack, and today we're going to talk about it. Mary, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, my audience loves to hear about near-death experiences, so if you don't mind, can we start on the day that yours happened?
Sure. So I was living with my family in Shanghai, China at the time, and I was planning on going to yoga with my husband. I was really excited. I had made arrangements for a babysitter to take care of the kids, and I was going to go to this yoga class. I was so excited. He normally wouldn't go with me, but he finally agreed to come with me to yoga. And I was talking on the phone with a friend of mine, just very casually, and my heart started feeling some pressure. And I kept talking, just kind of hoping maybe it'll go away. And I felt the pressure again, and it got deeper. And I said, I need to get off the phone because I need to make sure that everything is okay. I got off the phone. I felt immediately that everything was not okay. So I grabbed some things, put them in a bag, and told my husband that I needed to leave. I went to say goodbye to my kids, give them a quick kiss, tried to act like everything is normal, because I knew I was having a heart attack. And I knew that I needed to get to the hospital quickly. And my husband was having a conversation with the kids' godfathers on Skype. And I just said, I'm sorry, I got to go now. Put on flip-flops, went downstairs. My husband, came and helped me. And he said, what's going on? I told him it was the heart. And immediately he tried to help me get a taxi. And, in China, there was on Sunday morning, we lived in an area that was like, locals only, but there were a couple of bars. And on a Sunday morning, there just were not taxis. And so we were waiting and waiting. And I was just feeling worse and worse. And I just felt like I was having an asthma attack in my heart. And so I, was slumped over against a pole while he was looking for a taxi. We thought we had one, and we were so relieved. We were so excited. And then it got taken by another couple in front of us. And so we waited again. And while I was waiting, I just started feeling lighter and lighter. And I said, please, God, please help me, poured everything that I possibly could into this prayer for someone to help me. And I felt a presence, like a hammock, like I was being held in like a golden hammock. And not literally, but just figuratively, I just felt very held in that moment. And meanwhile, I was like slouched over on the street while my husband was looking for a taxi. He finally gets a taxi, gets me inside of it. And I just start thinking about my grandfather. And he's the one that I believe was also the one that was holding me in the hammock and the one that responded to me. And I started thinking about his hands as we were driving. And I just was concentrating on the look of his hands and, the veins in his hands, the bones of his hands, everything about him and his hands. And then we got to the hospital. The taxi couldn't get any closer to the emergency room. So I had to walk across the parking lot, and I just I'd been doing as much as I possibly could to stay with us, the entire time. And I felt like a cowboy in a Western, trying to get across this long last acre. And the doors of the emergency room came open, and I went through, felt like, a cowboy again. And meanwhile, my heart is still, pushing up against me. And it's just this is so ridiculous, because I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to die, in the parking lot? Like, am I dying in the taxi? Am I dying before I get a taxi? Am I dying telling my kids I just went to yoga? And so I get in there, they take my vital signs, and they think I'm crazy because, I don't look like I'm old enough to be having a heart attack is what they're thinking. And so they take all of my vitals, and I am trying to relax, trying to feel like the relief that is the sheets, the relief that is the room, the relief that is the machines. And my husband came in. He says, "What can I do to help you?" And I don't feel my grandfather there anymore. So I say, "Could you please read me an article from a magazine?" He's trying to keep my attention, trying to keep me as focused as he possibly can. Meanwhile, I'm feeling lighter and lighter again. And they've taken the EKG, they've given me the nitro, they're doing the blood work, they're doing everything they can, but I'm just feeling lighter and lighter. And so while he's trying to find a story to tell me, I swing into the other side. And on the other side, I saw, I was on like a swing set, and there was a little girl beside me on my left, and she was like 5 or 6 years old. And she was swinging out really long extensions and coming back, really long extensions and coming back. And she was giggling, and her hair was kind of obstructing her face, so I couldn't see what she looked like. But her voice was like bubbles. She was just so effervescent and so happy. And so I was being held back on the ropes, and I was waiting to see, am I going to be, brought forward? And I just started clocking everything around me. And there's the little girl who's making me feel very like happy, joyous. And then below me is white, like white clouds, but not a white that had any depth. So normally if you're, up above something, you would look down and you would say, oh, that's about 5 feet, I could jump, or there's this step and this step, but there was nothing like that. And I didn't feel any concern about it, even though I didn't see like any way to get down. I didn't know where I was. I felt really safe in that space. And in front of me was a sunset, like the brightest sunset I've ever seen in my life, just all pigment, just all saturation. And on the left-hand side, beyond the little girl, was this huge white light, which would be like a white sun, but really close. And I knew instinctively that that was a space that was really a big deal, and that I was not ready to go there by myself, but I was really also interested in it. And I kind of felt like the natural progression would be for me to go into that space. And so I remember feeling, and this happened in like an instant, but I just remember feeling like, most importantly, I was completely safe. I was safer than I'd ever been in my entire life. There were no degrees of safety. It wasn't a conditional safety. It wasn't like, I'm pretty safe, but I could be safer, or I'm really safe except for this one danger where I could fall into a pile of clouds, or, who's this girl? Does she even have a face? There was no thoughts like that. It was just complete, encompassing, all pervasive love and acceptance. And I didn't feel any concern for, the people that I had left behind, or the things that I had not done, or, there was no, it was like a seamless integration of peace, love, happiness, acceptance. There wasn't any forgiveness because there was nothing to forgive. And then as I was feeling more and more confident in that space and wanting to be there, then I swung forward. And I was thinking that I was swinging forward to join the little girl, or swinging forward into the light. And I passed her. So I thought, okay, I'm going into the light. And then I swung back into my body.
Did you have any other experiences after that?
No, I mean, when I got back into my body, and the interesting thing is how I knew I was back in my body is because I felt pain. And I knew that in the space that I was in before, I never would have felt any kind of physical pain. But I felt heat on my chest. And the doctor was saying, Mary, are you with us now? Are you with us? And I said, like it took me a minute to feel my voice again and to feel like, oh, I can make the words come out. And I said, yes, but I heard my husband calling like a bear, like an animal grieving sound. And I said, you really need to help him. And she said, you're the patient. And I was like, no, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're a terrible doctor. There's this guy and he's having a terrible time. But yeah, that was my only experience of having a near-death experience. I had my grandfather come visit me when he was dying. Like the moment that he died, he visited me, and he was in his bed in the hospital, and he was singing to me, and he was holding my hand and telling me that everything was going to be okay. So my grandfather and I had a really special spiritual connection before that happened with me.
Is this the same grandfather that you felt like was with you at the beginning of your experience?
Yeah. Leonard Bergstrom. Nicest guy ever.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you ever get any sense of who the girl was next to you?
No. And I've really been thinking about, it was really such a mystery. And I thought, do I know someone who passed away, or is there someone in my life? And she's not anyone that I know. She's no one that I know. So I think that it may have been like a distraction for me. There's a lot of like theories that I could have that could, make some sense of it, but I felt very safe. I didn't feel like I knew that girl at the time or after, but I did feel like she kept my attention and she kept me feeling really calm and open.
Do you have a guess who you think she was? Like perhaps a guardian angel or somebody?
It could, I still feel the same way. I still feel like really open to whatever it was. Maybe I'll see her again when I pass away. Hopefully just one more time. Maybe another one. I don't know. We'll see. But she could have been, a guardian angel. She could have been like a manifestation specifically to keep my attention calm. She could have been like somebody who visited just for that one particular event. That could be that little girl's job, is just to hold people in that space and keep them calm while fate is determining the next steps.
From what you were saying, it seems like the overriding feeling you got when you were there was safety.
Yeah.
But did you have any feeling of like unconditional love or overwhelming love or euphoria or anything like that as well?
Definitely unconditional love. And that's like, I feel like there's unconditional love is the complete absence of fear. And so, when I was there, I felt completely surrounded by unconditional love, not just for me, but for all of humanity and for all beings. And I felt like, there wasn't that idea of fire and brimstone and accountability in my experience. I didn't feel like, you've done a really good job, but maybe other people haven't. I didn't feel that at all. I felt like, you humans are unconditionally loved and supported. And even if the experience on Earth is really difficult, there is a place that you will go back to where that will be a memory.
Prior to the experience, were you a religious person? And if so or not, have you changed afterwards?
I'm a spiritual person for sure. My mom was getting her her bachelor's degree in religious studies when she was raising me. And so I've always been exposed to a lot of different religions, and I'm interested in them as a, as kind of like a human organization. But I am a spiritual person, which I think is separate from religion. So I have a lot of deep love and respect and interest in religions, but I consider myself more of a spiritual person.
Do you feel like you have any lasting changes from this experience?
Yeah. I think that, the biggest gift, and, as I was saying to you earlier, I just feel like there's such a gift in not fearing death. And there's such a weight that's lifted when you don't have to feel like, oh my God, I don't know what's coming next. Maybe I'm going to be hurt more than I've been hurt on earth. And I don't feel that way at all. I feel like, the space that I came from and the space that I'll go back to is this beautiful unconditional love. And that's all pervasive. And in the meantime, I'm here on earth and I'm getting such a great opportunity. It's such a privilege to play the earth game and to be a human and to have different relationships and to learn. And when I'm done with that, I know that I'll go back to a place of complete acceptance, complete peace. So if I can, carry a little bit of that, a little nugget of that with me, then that's just so hugely to my benefit. And if I can share that, then I feel like that's a big part of what I'm meant to do. I was talking to my daughter and my son. Randomly, the idea of near-death experiences came up while we were eating burritos. And I hadn't told them, it's hard to say, okay, guys, mommy has a bunch of heart attacks, because I've had at this point now 9. So at the time, we were talking about, just what happened at school. And my son brought up the idea about, people dying and coming back to life. And he said, why are you looking so funny? Do you know anybody that's happened to? And I was like, oh gosh, I'd planned on having this conversation when they were so much older. But I just felt like that was the moment. And so I told my daughter, I held her hand and I said, we're going to talk about this now. And I know that you're scared, but I know that we've got this and we're going to get through this together. And if we talk about it now, you don't have to be afraid anymore. And so, because she was a little bit older and she knew that something was wrong and there was some reason that we moved from China to the US, but she wasn't old enough or confident enough to articulate what those concerns were. So at that time, with sour cream all over our faces, we talked about what it was like on the other side. And at the end, both of my kids felt really calm, really good. And my daughter made a suggestion and she said, Mama, if you know this information and other people don't, shouldn't you share it? Shouldn't you write about it? And so she was actually the one who suggested that I put it out there so that other people wouldn't be afraid too.
That's great.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
If you don't mind sharing, do you have like a heart valve problem or a blood problem?
I have something called spontaneous coronary artery dissection. It's called SCAD. And it impacts primarily women that are younger, that have no history. They have no risk factors. And a lot of times, although this isn't the case with me because both of my kids are adopted, but a lot of times the heart attack events can take place around a pregnancy. So there are a lot of really wonderful SCAD people in the community that I'm a part of on Facebook. And it's been such a gift to meet other people that have gone through this, because it's almost like, feeling like and knowing that you can have a heart attack anytime. It's like there's like a floor beneath the basement that you didn't know about in terms of like depth of living and skills for how to live in the moment and how to, manage stress and anxiety, and also, manage gratitude. So that's what I have. And there's a number of other people that have it as well. And I've had, you can have one and be done, or you can have multiples. And at this point, I've had 9 heart attacks.
I remember a desiccated artery, I thought, is kind of breaking down like a stroke or something, like the artery starts to leak blood.
Yeah.
Usually the patients know more about their conditions than most people because they study it. Can you tell us what's going on, if you don't mind?
Oh, not at all. I'm so happy to have this conversation, because I feel like not enough people understand that things can go awry outside of what they've been told or what they expect is going to happen with their bodies. So for SCAD, you have like a vessel here and the blood is shooting through. And what will happen with a heart attack, with a SCAD heart attack, is it will just like a little bit of the vessel wall will break and the blood will go through someplace else.
Right.
And so, what's terrifying about that is it can happen anytime. You and I can be having a conversation. It can happen. It just happened on May 27th on my daughter's birthday. Bummer. Sorry, sweetie. Got to go to the hospital. But it's what's cool about it. What's really amazing, which is like a message of hope, and like thinking that there's a floor beneath the basement. There's also a lot of space above the ceiling. So my heart has healed itself for all of those heart attacks. And at one point I had 5 heart attacks in a row, and the structure of my heart, the function of my heart, after a few months of, me doing everything I can to make it better, my heart was functioning better than it had before.
Do they keep you on a medication for that, like a blood thinner or something?
Yeah, I'm on medication, but to be honest, these medications are largely sugar pills. Like it's a kind of a traditional cardiac cocktail, because they don't have any real understanding or knowledge about what is it that creates SCAD and how they could minimize its impact.
What's fascinating is that it only affects the coronary arteries.
So in terms of why the coronary arteries, so I have also been diagnosed with the big sister of SCAD. So SCAD does only affect the coronary arteries, but FMD, fibromuscular dysplasia, impacts all of the arteries in your body. So after I had the 5 heart attacks, which was, my 8th heart attack, I said, oh my gosh, I really better do absolutely everything I can, even though I've seen amazing doctors. And so I went to the Mayo Clinic, and the Mayo Clinic, they diagnosed me with fibromuscular dysplasia, and they found tears, dissections in my coronary artery, or my carotid artery, in my renal, my kidneys, and in my leg. And so for a year and a half, we had to go and, check on this. And I had the little signs of a stroke up on my refrigerator to see, like, okay, well, now I have to watch out for my heart. I also have to watch out for a stroke. And while I was at the Mayo, they also showed me a lot of beautiful imagery of my brain that had shown that there were certain vessels in my brain that had dissected where they'd healed. So you could see that as well. So I left the Mayo on that day just feeling like, you know what, you're just going to have to validate my parking, and I'm going to have to go, because this is just too much for me to think about. And when I asked them, well, if I have to worry about heart attacks and strokes, do I also need to worry about cancer? And they said, well, that's a possibility. And I said, well, what about, getting hit by lightning? Well, that's always a possibility. And, what about, getting mauled by wild dogs? Well, so I just thought, well, this is too much. So I'm just going to put the things on my fridge, take the sugar pills, and call it a day.
I think that's great. Just live your life.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it wasn't your time. So
yeah,
here you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that all of those vignettes in the meantime have served to really make me feel more closely aligned with life, and more really aware of the present moment, and really able to prioritize what's important to me.
Did you happen to get any abilities that you've never had before from this, like precognition or clairvoyance or something?
I think that, I don't know if it's like an ability, but I did, and I guess it would be like, I don't know exactly what it was, but I did feel after I had that experience for about maybe close to a year, I would get really dizzy in certain spaces. And, even sometimes I just would be driving with my husband, and I would say, whoa, do you feel that? And it would just be like a little rumbling. And he would say, oh God, who do I have taking care of my kids? This is a mess. But I felt things so seriously that I had to leave spaces a lot of the time just to kind of get my bearings. And as soon as I would walk across the street or be out of the space, it would go away, and then I would go back into the space and it would come back. I definitely feel a lot more open since I had the near-death experience. And what I've learned that I need to work on now is actually not the opening up as much as I need to work on the boundaries and keeping myself, safe, because I do think that I'm just so much more empathic than I used to be.
And you kind of feel like you have to shut that down, or you start picking up everybody's situation.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people come to my channel or to my videos because someone close to them has recently passed away and they're looking for some type of reassurance that life goes on. Mm-hmm. Can you give them any advice or any help with that?
Yeah. And I think that I can give some help with that, or just, share my experience based on not only how I felt and, the knowledge that I gained from being up on that other level and feeling like, even if there's pain in life, even if there is, mistrust or disenfranchisement or abuse, neglect, that when I was up there, all of those things melted away. They fell away. They were not as important. They weren't as big and as encompassing as the love and acceptance that I felt. And it just felt so unconditional. So if you're a person left the planet and maybe you didn't get a chance to say goodbye, or you're worried about them, or you feel like I could have done more, I think that, my experience would just be that everything happens the way that it is meant to happen. And I don't believe that there's any grudges or any poor feelings on the other side. And then, also from my experience with my grandfather, who I was, tremendously close with, when I miss him, which is often, I just think of him and I know him so well, and I know how much he loved me. And if I spend time not doing other things, but just, going on a walk and just sharing memories of him, just bringing them more to the present, I feel a continued connection. So I feel like I miss him, but I don't feel like I'm without him.
Right. I would assume that after this experience, you kind of now feel like that he's out there somewhere, and when you finally go, you'll see him again.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't think that in the meantime, even though I'm not seeing him, he's still a part of my life. I still felt his presence when I got married. I still, when I go pick up my son at camp after this, I'll talk to my son about, like I just had this really nice interview and it was so nice. I got to talk about Grandpa Leonard, and sharing that with them, and having pictures that he drew or that he painted in the house, and sharing, pictures and memories of him just makes his life continue on. So he's alive for me in my own world, but then I share him with the people around me so that he's alive in my community as well.
If you don't mind sharing with us, why do you think that you have such a special connection with your grandfather?
I think that he is just a really special man. And I think that he decided when I was little that I was a special person and that I was a special gift. And I think that his love felt more unconditional to me than anybody else's. So it's not surprising that, that would be the string that kind of ties everything together. Because I remember being, very little and having him hold me up and just being so proud of me. And I didn't necessarily feel that kind of unconditional love and affection everywhere.
Right.
But for him, I always felt it right there on the surface.
Kind of reminds me of the joke about why does the grandchild and the grandparent have such a special connection? And it's because they have a common enemy.
No.
It's just a joke.
That's funny. I've never heard that joke before.
Yeah.
I think that there is something definitely to be said about, when you're not the parent, you can have a different kind of relationship with a child. And I think that, when you're a child, you're really looking for, where do I feel the most steady? Where do I feel like I could be special? Where do I get that kind of reinforcement that could lift me above, other trials and difficulties in my life? And I feel like, he had his own life and had his own, trials and tribulations. And when we had our relationship, when he was alive, he was really ready to just put so much into me. And that's really been an inspiration for, how I take care of my kids too. I don't take it for granted, that they're my kids and we're always going to be close. It's not necessarily like that. Like, I know that every day they need to feel just like a pinch of that specialness, a pinch of that, like nobody's forgotten about you. You're the most special person on the earth. And I know that can make you grow. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you happen to recall the other side through any other senses? And that would be hearing anything or smelling anything?
No, in my experience, there's such a big gap between the other side and this earth. There's nothing that, it's almost like all of the words that we have don't really describe the other side. And all of the, on the other side, it wasn't so much the five senses. It's like the sixth sense, it's like the emotion and the feeling and the knowing that comes with that couldn't possibly be prescribed to, the smell of apples, or the smell of lavender, or, I do know that when I have a heart attack, in addition to like the pressure, sometimes I do feel the lightness. And I did feel, when I was in the hospital a few times since then, I've kind of gauged, do I feel this lightness, as in, could I be moving over to the other side now? And one time when I was in Stanford and I was having a heart attack, and it was like the fifth one in that stretch. And I thought, no, this isn't that feeling. So I'm really hot. I'm really annoyed. A lot of people are in this room and they look really scared, but it's fine. I'm not going to die. And then one time I went to Cedars-Sinai in, other hospital, Mount Sinai in New York. And, I was in the emergency room waiting, and I was like, I felt the lightness again. And I thought, yeah, this could be that moment. So, and that doesn't have anything to do with like what's going on around me. It's just about me being in touch with my body and me being in touch with what did it feel like on the other side and having that instant recognition.
I want to say this delicately. I don't know how to say it delicately, but
just say what you're going to say.
I'm going to say that at least when you're having these episodes, I don't think you're fearful of like,
no.
Okay, this might be the end,
No, I'm not fearful at all, because I also feel like I've had the opportunity at this point, which a lot of people don't get. So I'm very grateful. I don't take it for granted at all, but I've had the opportunity to do what I need to do. So, like I have had a relationship with my kids that's just as strong as I had with my grandmother. And I've had a relationship with my husband, and I've had a relationship with my community and my spirituality. And I'm ready. I'm ready to live as big and bold as I can and be as much of a vessel of use and value as I can be. And then when it's my time, I'm also ready to go out in the way that I can, that will be of benefit. So when I felt that feeling when I was at Mount Sinai, I reached over to, I told my friend who was with me, I said, this might be happening. And she is a really brave and beautiful woman named Alam. And she was, she held me on my hand. And then I turned my attention to the guy that was next to me, because he was on a gurney and he was really having a terrible time. And, his daughter was there crying. And so I put my hand on his gurney and I just prayed for him.
It's amazing.
So I feel like every time I go to the hospital, there's opportunities for me to be helpful, to be like a helpful vessel. And so the more I take those opportunities, the better I feel about being alive, and the less I feel afraid or nervous or hindered by the idea of death.
Do you get the sense that the other side is more real than here?
Mm-hmm.
Like some of my experiencers, I believe, will even say, here is a joke. There is the real world.
Well, I do. I get what that is. I definitely get what that is. I think that when you feel something that's that complete, then, being in this world where for me, it feels like a video game, So like, how can you, while you're here, how can you learn as much as you can about being a human being? How can you try as much as you can? So it's made me a lot more joyful and a lot more curious and a lot less attached to the outcomes, because I don't feel like any of these outcomes are really as important. If I get money or get a house, or, the most important thing is, am I learning to be a good human? Because at the end of this, I already know there's a beautiful resting place for me, for my soul. And then I also believe in reincarnation. So I believe that, after that's done, if I've cycled through the lessons that I have to learn in this lifetime, then hopefully for the next lifetime, I can cycle through more lessons.
Is there something in your experience that gave you the belief of reincarnation?
When I was little, like 4 or 5 years old, I remember laying in bed, and I remember feeling not, I don't know if I would say spoken to, but just feeling like this is not all that there is. And because, I believe this is not all that there is, because there's more out there, because I felt tethered to something larger than I could put my feet on earth. I think that that's kind of given me the confidence. And whenever I dismiss those thoughts or try to prioritize more like physical gains, then it doesn't work. It's just so much more important to feel connected to something. And that's just been the way I've always been.
I've had guests tell me that they visited other worlds. And one of the things that I learned that I really enjoyed from one guest was that you don't even have to reincarnate if you don't want to, or you don't have to come back here. If you want to go to some other world or some other place, it's up to you, wherever you want to go.
I think that, I'm open to whatever that is. If that's the proposal that I'm given at the time, then I'll certainly consider it. But I feel like right now, what I can do is live on this earthly plane and, not take for granted the opportunities that I'm given here. And I don't want to spend too much time thinking about what could be next.
Right.
Because then you really lose out on the opportunities that are right here.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
What do you think inspires you most about your experience?
I think the idea of helping people, and even just talking to my kids about, what happened when I passed away, and just having them be conversant in the language of like, life is more than just this one plane. And I think that, for them, like to see them be really empathetic, and to see them be big thinkers, and to think past, like, what is this life about for me? What do I get out of it? But also, what is it that I can put back into life? How can I make it better for other people? How can I understand what's happening in my world for like all 6 of my, dimensions and my different senses, instead of just thinking, life is something that's owed to me? I think that they're genuinely curious. So for me to have that relationship with them where we can talk about things on such a deep level, I feel has been like the sweetest experience of my life. And then just to be able to continue that on a daily basis, and not knowing what's going to come and when I can share these, moments of like sweet blissful connection with strangers, which is one thing that I really missed during the pandemic, is just being able to walk down the street, because sometimes you'll be thinking, one time I was in Brooklyn right before we left for the pandemic, and I saw this woman in front of me, and she looked like she was carrying a lot of different things. And so I was thinking, is there some way that I could help her? And I was thinking that as I was walking towards her, and right before I got to her, somebody came up and helped her. And I just thought, there's such beautiful, magical connection when you're intentional about things. And so I love to just have the opportunity to kind of play with that on a daily basis.
All right, I'm going to switch gears on you. You have a website. What is that called?
MaryBergstrom.com.
Okay. And do you have anything that you would like to promote? But I'm not sure what's on your website, so let's go there. What is the content that's on your website?
So in a few years ago, I wrote an essay for the New York Times, which was called Preparing My Family for Life Without Me. And it was in their Modern Love section. And I just realized that, putting this essay out there where I talk about what it's like to be thinking, oh, I could be having a heart attack. What is it like to be, settling into life with kids, knowing that this could be, my last year. And I felt a certain, I don't want to say responsibility, but, it was the time for me to put something up online that kind of received people if they read it, because it was the New York Times is such a large audience in the Modern Love section in particular. And I just felt like if people felt like that resonated with them, then they needed to have a place to go and to connect. And so I created the website as soon as I realized it, which was like 2 days before the article came out. And then I was blogging just to kind of say, like, these are the things that are going on with me now to maintain that connection with people, because I got so many, people whose children had passed away, or, who were dealing with heart issues themselves, or who had, cancer in their family, or who just were afraid of death, or who were just managing their own anxiety. And I just felt like I wanted a net for all of those people. And I wanted a way to kind of maintain that connection that would be sustainable. So I have a blog on there, and one of these days I'll finish the book, which was based on the essay, and then that will be up there.
If people want to reach out to you and ask you questions, are you open for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's also why I started the blog, though, because it can be a little bit overwhelming to have all of the questions. And that's why I was really excited to have the conversation with you, because it's a good opportunity to, I obviously can't have these kind of conversations with everybody, but if I have a conversation with you and then you can put it out to a larger audience, then I can keep working on raising my kids, maintaining my health, trying to finish this book, moving on to our next place.
Right. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right,
I love hearing from people, though, but I'm just not as good at getting back, but I do love hearing from them.
Well, after this podcast post, lots of people may want to reach out to you.
Tell them to do it then.
Why? Great. All right. Well, before we finish up, do you have one last positive message that you want to share with everybody?
Don't be so hard on yourselves. There's not this idea of, I could do better, I could do more. I just think that we're all so taxed right now. And if there's some little piece that you can take back from this conversation, it's just the idea that, you are universally and completely loved, that there is that love for you, and that hopefully when you have the opportunity, you can give some of that back to yourself.
That's a great message. Mary, you are a remarkable woman, and I really enjoyed this conversation with you today. I wish you the best, and have a great evening.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.